Awesome.
How are you doing, John?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing great. You know, it's a beautiful, beautiful day down here in Texas. I want to say it's nice and cool out. You know, we're only probably in the 70s. So it's been a good day.
You're going to do this every time to me, aren't you?
Every time. You know what? In the middle of summer when it's 110 freaking degrees here and you tell me that it's, only 40 Celsius, then I'll suffer then. So
You betcha I will.
Well, it's been a big week,
It's been a big month.
Yeah, I barely remember yesterday, so I was going with just a week, but gee whiz, yeah. BI is just spinning everywhere.
It does seem to be the next big thing, doesn't it?
It really does seem to be the thing. I don't know about you. I've been asked a ton lately by customers, by community members, all about what's new with BI. And, it seems like this week there's a lot of stuff that hit. I don't know. Last week I was on vacation. I actually took time off. First time.
There was a little bit of news last week too, yeah.
I know. I was on the golf course with my dad. We moved to Texas back in July, and it was the first time I'd spent a full day with my dad. And I said, Dad, I'm taking the day off of work. It was Monday. It's a beautiful day. We got out on the golf course, and I'm sitting there using my Band 2 to track my golf game. It was horrible, by the way. And all of a sudden, the thing starts blowing up. It would not stop. And it's all Twitter. RTM SharePoint 2016, RTM SharePoint 2016, Of course, when I go on vacation, same thing happened with 2013. They decide to go RTM while I'm on a golf course. So, I was tweeting and Facebooking from the golf course. My dad was yelling at me a little bit, but it worked out. And you know what? We're at RTM. It's a pretty exciting time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, that not coincidentally, we got a couple of guests here to talk about some of the implications in our world too.
Yeah. So, what else has come up this week?
Oh, well, this week there was the Microsoft Data Summit happened in Seattle, and although neither one of us could be there, my business partner, Ed, he was there, so I was chatting back and forth with him. In fact, I got a few of my questions jammed into one of the sessions, so I was streaming it, and I sending him a note, Ed, ask this. It got answered. But there was an awful lot of really interesting stuff coming out of that. There was a couple of numbers thrown around, and I wish I'd have written them down, but we're at some ridiculous number of users. I think it's 20,000 companies are now using Power BI, and that's obviously the cloud stuff, certainly in our area. So we had all this, and then there was some interesting announcements around Excel, et cetera, et cetera. We can get into them in detail later. But that's the whole cloud side of things. And then we had SharePoint coming out last week, which is, of course, the on-prem side of things. So, yeah, there's an awful lot going on, and certainly in my world.
So, we can dive into more news. I think we want to get to our guests, though. And before we do that, we still have a tip and trick that we got to do.
Well, we can leave that till the end if we wanted. We don't need to leave Kai and Greg hanging here. So
yeah,
jump into that.
They've been kind enough to hop on, and it's kind of late where Greg is. So I guess we should go ahead and ask them to join. Gentlemen, if you want to go ahead and turn on your cams, and we'll get you unmuted.
So yeah, I'll just jump in today with us. We're quite lucky to have essentially the on-prem, certainly from the Office standpoint and the SharePoint standpoint. Kind of the brain trust behind BI at Microsoft. We've got Kai Unkroth, who is on the SQL team, and he is a senior program manager. He's responsible for both the Power Pivot add-on that we have come to know and love in the SharePoint world, and SSRS, the integrated mode in SharePoint. And we've also got Gregory Appel, all the way from Tel Aviv, I believe, tonight, who is also on is on the Office team, and he pretty much owns Office Online Server. So there shouldn't be too many things that we can't get the answers to here today, provided we ask them the right way.
Yes. So you have to be very nice and use the chat window. So at the very bottom of the screen, you'll find that there is a chat window. Please be sure to throw stuff in there. If you have questions as we go, if you have a question that's burning in the back of your mind that you've got to have answered, these gentlemen are looking at the chat window as well. We will be happy to press and probe and prod to get you the right answers, this is our opportunity. So please feel free. Use that chat window liberally and go. So
meanwhile, a small correction. I don't own the Office Online Server, but I do own the Excel Online on premises. So
there's other products involved in that?
So you say it too. I always call it Office Online Server on-prem. Like,
yeah, well,
it rolls off the tongue just perfectly. Office Online Server on-prem. Like, we need an acronym for it. Like Bob. If we could just use Bob, it's now Bob.
we have a few acronyms already. So we have WAC and we have, everything in between.
I like WAC.
USOP. USOP. Office Online Server on-prem. USOP. I'm just...
Yeah.
I want to hear that at Ignite. I'm just saying. So, well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here, and really appreciate you coming and being willing to take your time. Gregory, I know it's late for you, and Kai, it's early for you. So we're really hitting the two sides of this. It's a pleasure to have you. So, a couple of key things that have come up recently. RTM, big deal. I think you guys are probably pretty happy with that, getting to that point. Everybody's been drinking heavily on the call. We had Perrier and
stuff, yeah.
So congratulations, first of all, on getting to that big marker. I know May 4th is going to be a huge date in the Microsoft world, but RTM is equally as huge, just getting to that point. Lots of changes for SharePoint in this version. I personally was at, when the first reveals came, we were at SP TechCon, I believe it was up in Boston, and the statement of Excel services is gone was, wasn't quite understood what it meant with Excel services was deprecated at first for SharePoint. And now we've been telling the story very well that it's moved into the right place. So, Gregory, I want to give you an opportunity to talk to that a little bit.
Sure, I can do that. So yeah, as you mentioned, at first we did generate some confusion by our statements that Excel services is no longer available, and people started losing consciousness right there without needing to read the reminder of the sentence. But in actual fact, Excel services capabilities still remain on premises. Nothing changed in this respect. But Excel services application is no longer there. So the capabilities are still available, very much so. But the application itself that used to run on the SharePoint box is no longer there. So these capabilities are now available through the Office Online Server, the OOS/WAC/ all the other names that it has. Nowadays, you could just have the server and install all the Office web applications on the server, and together with them, you would have Excel Online, which is the new name for Excel web application. And just enjoy all the capabilities that used to be present in Excel services over Office Online Server. So that's in the nutshell what happened. Now, having said that, all those other add-ons that you used to rely on SharePoint, such as Power Pivot for SharePoint add-in and the integrated reporting services add-in, are still necessary. They didn't go anywhere. It's just that the Excel services had moved to Office Online Server because if you remember the previous topologies and the previous installations, you used to be in a situation where you could have one instance run as Excel services, one instance of Excel, and another instance run as Excel web application on WAC 15. So you would end up with these two instances that have different installations, different deployments, different feature sets, different licensing requirements, and it wasn't really clear what you could do with one and couldn't do with the other, and how do you need to combine the two, and whether you need to combine the two. So I think we did simplify the story with this move, really.
I agree. And
I'm just going to say I definitely agree with that. Although I think some of the initial confusion was when we talked about we were going to replace it with Office Online Server and didn't bother explaining what that was.
As an IT pro, for me, I've been a SharePoint IT pro for a long time now. The story got better for me because we moved that workload, that heavier workload, off of the SharePoint tier into something that is the right place for it. It's where the calculations really should be happening. The topology streamlined quite a bit, and for owning servers and having to maintain them, definitely a better story. And the patching story, I think, gets a lot better as well. So,
well, I also like the licensing clients.
Yeah, we heard from a lot of customers that they had this problem of scaling SharePoint farms for the sake of Excel services, because Excel services used to have large footprint on the SharePoint server. So when they hear that they no longer need to scale SharePoint farms for the sake of Excel services, and their SharePoint is now free to do what SharePoint is supposed to do, and its memory footprint is also alleviated. So that's always a good story to tell. Whereas this very footprint goes away to the dedicated server where it belongs, and you can scale the Office Online Server farm in order to scale all your web applications like you would in a large organization.
I also think it's a better licensing story, because not only that, but you don't have to now license those machines that are going to run the Excel instance. And certainly in my world, a number of my customers have gone to enterprise SharePoint just because you needed that to have Excel services, and it doesn't look like you do anymore. I know that the licensing hasn't officially been announced, but from all appearances to me, it would seem that that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah, this is indeed the story. Licensing is going to be updated. It's just a matter of updating the page in the TechNet, which takes some time. But licensing story for SharePoint BI has indeed changed for the better, in my opinion. Because up until now, in order to utilize any BI scenario over SharePoint or using Excel services, you did the enterprise SharePoint license. Whereas today, we basically decided to decouple two different customer needs. So some customers treat BI as the ability to connect to external data sources, as the ability to work with OLAP cubes, as the ability to utilize data model. And whereas some other customers do want to leverage those advanced BI capabilities that exist over SharePoint as add-ons to SharePoint Server. So we decided to decouple these two needs, and the connectivity to external data and the ability to work with the data model is now provided on the standard SharePoint license, whereas the advanced BI capabilities such as scheduled data refresh or Power Pivot Gallery and the IT management dashboard, etc., are provided with enterprise SharePoint calls. So it seems like a much better deal for our customers. Yeah, and of course, Kai, the SQL license is still required. I mean,
yes,
the conversation about licensing is the conversation about SharePoint licensing, not SQL licensing. So
yes,
SQL does remain intact. Correct me if I'm wrong.
yes.
Cool.
So that brings up a really good topic. I want to say it was almost 2 weeks ago, there was this really big blog post from Microsoft talking about SQL 2016, and there were two pieces of it, and I really wish it would have been two separate blogs, because I think that the message that I really cared about got trumped by this thing about Linux, SQL on Linux. That's great. I'm so happy for you that you guys are going to do SQL on Linux, but it's not, not my cup of tea. I know it was the big news because it's the purple unicorn. Nobody ever thought it was going to happen. But the thing that in that blog article that was of interest to me that I was really excited by and was kind of angry that it got overlooked by every media outlet was BI for everyone. And as a part of SQL 2016, that's the major focus. Kai, I wanted to kick it over to you. Tell us a little bit about why that's, what's there. I know this is the world that you guys are living in. What excited me was that concept of BI for everyone coming to on-prem. It's that on-prem world. It's not just Power BI. It's also the on-prem story. So I'll kick to you.
Yeah, there's a lot coming in the weeks of April. There's a lot of information about the SQL Server release. It unfortunately doesn't translate so well into the SharePoint world. The BI components inside SharePoint don't see that many changes. The changes that we will have with SQL Server 2016 primarily are in analysis services and reporting services native mode.
Yeah.
I think we will discuss some of them later in this session.
Oh, or whatever.
That was my tricky way of trying to kick that topic off for you there, guys. Sorry.
That's right. No, well, I was just going to say I was struck last fall, and I think I wrote about it on my blog when we had the future of reporting on-prem. It was the box is back, and that whole conversation, and it all centered around reporting services. In fact, called out in that blog is reporting services is our strategy for on-prem report delivery. And which was interesting because for years, SharePoint was the strategy for on-prem report delivery, and everything kind of drove towards that. I think it's pretty obvious that signaled a pretty major shift in what's going on. And I like to look at it now, I suppose, as SSRS doesn't have to run on SharePoint. Now it's better if it runs with SharePoint. And I think that's a great move from a strategy standpoint, but it does have some implications. I don't know if you wanted to grab that for a second, Kai, just talk about some of those implications. The native mode versus the SharePoint integrated mode.
Well, look at the history of SSRS altogether, right? From 2005 on, 2008-ish, we had a SharePoint integration story that relied on the RS add-in, still exists today, but SSRS itself was actually not part of SharePoint in those days, right? That was still separate. And then we came up with Power Pivot, and that was in the SharePoint 2010 timeframe, where we built this massive shared service application that even required the analysis services engine to be directly on that server inside the SharePoint farm. It was driven by the SharePoint APIs that and the technology that evolved with SharePoint 2010 that was available to us, and at the time seemed like the greatest idea to put everything directly into SharePoint. We also wanted to make setup easier in SQL 2008 R2 timeframe. If you remember, we had set up that option where we would even completely install a farm for you. That was.
Would you like some SharePoint with that?
Yeah, we had good intentions. I mean, it didn't work out quite.
You mean you actually meant well?
I mean, look at how SharePoint does it, right? They have a configuration wizard, and then they actually have, and you first put down the bits, and then you launch that configuration wizard. They're two separate things.
Yep.
In SQL, we thought we can do it all in one go. And the SharePoint deployment experience didn't lend itself so well to that idea, especially when you had multiple servers in the SharePoint farm. If one is not up and running at the moment, the solution package deployment doesn't succeed in time for a setup executable. This concept of waiting 2 days for setup to complete is really relatively foreign to a SQL setup application. So it would time out at a stage where we're now in this limbo mode. The solution package is half deployed. We can't roll back because that server is still not available. That was 2008 R2. That was so. In we did a great thing by trying to undo this. We came up with our configuration wizard. Yay! AS in 2012 SP1, we moved AS out of the SharePoint environment. That was with SharePoint 2013. Really, that was well received. It made things easier. But to come back to that question, how did it go with SSRS? When we went all in with Power Pivot, the SSRS guys said, this is the future. This is what we should do too. And so, boom, now we had SSR in 2012 with PowerView, yes, as a shared service application as well. So we moved all into SharePoint. Now, what happened at that time frame, it's not necessarily a bad idea to have SSRS inside SharePoint. But what happens is SharePoint Online evolved.
Yep.
Now the entire integration story changes yet again, right? Look at Excel Online in the cloud. With Gregory, I always have to now say in the cloud or on-prem because there's only one Excel Online, right, Gregory?
Yes.
Look at Excel Online. Yes, Excel Online moved out of SharePoint for two reasons really, right? One is the consolidation of these two different modes. The other is also to have a unified architecture that works both with SharePoint Online in the cloud as well as SharePoint On-Prem. And you can see that with the BI workloads, which are really only available On-Prem because we're still based on the SharePoint 2010 based approach, and in SharePoint Online that just doesn't fly. We have different protocols available now, different architectures, different technologies, and we can do a much better job integrating without all these tight, heavy dependencies, and that will, in the long run, make it a lot easier for the administrators when we deploy these things.
Yeah, I do like this move. I think it makes a lot of sense. It gives you guys one code base really to develop against. Ultimately, if that's the ultimate direction, it does.
It's also a more lead cloud first, right? You have the technology first in the cloud, and because it is one architecture, you can then really bring it down to on-prem much easier. With BI, we always had this challenge. We had great services in the cloud. We still have. And these capabilities are not yet on-prem. Just look no further than Power BI. We have great cloud service. We have Power BI desktop, but the server is not there yet because it will take some time to actually build the integrations right and get these things done. That's also one of the reasons why we haven't really embraced the new technologies with the Power Pivot add-in or SSRS just yet. We had to land what we have to do for the release in analysis services and SSRS native. What spills over into SharePoint integrated mode will spill over. We have, for example, HTML5 for RDL reports. The paginated reports will be based on HTML5 just the same as with the native instance. Of course, it doesn't bring any benefits to a PowerView because that is a different rendering system. But and the other side is mobile BI is not available in SharePoint integrated mode simply because that work didn't spill immediately over to the same areas there in the SharePoint. So customers will in SQL 2016 RTM see that several really exciting technologies like mobile BI reports will not be available in SharePoint integrated mode, and then naturally it comes across as we don't care about SharePoint. That's not the point at all. It's just that we know we're in a transitional phase right now. We couldn't get it all done in time for SQL Server 2016. We will approach this as soon as 2016 is out the door.
Yeah, that's kind of where it falls. I get asked, well, what's going on? What should I do? Native mode? Should I do SharePoint integrated mode? My advice is to stand up both. If you want to use mobile reports, stand them up on a native mode server. If you need, and to my mind, and going into this, I was thinking I would just recommend native mode exclusively and use the web parts that come with, for integration with native mode, but they don't allow for parameterization yet. So people should, if you don't know this already, you should definitely be aware of that. That's a blocker, at least in my mind. But that's coming, right? I mean, that's good. We'll be able to plug that into native mode down the road. And once that's the case, then we don't have a native mode server that's dependent on SharePoint. So none of these, some of these platform questions that we have, like the one I've got coming for you right next, won't play. They won't matter.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up the web parts. We ran there into some gotchas too, right? We have new capabilities in native mode, but the web part for the native instance is deprecated. So now what do we do? Do we bring back a deprecated technology? We won't. We will have something better in the future. But there are some things that don't quite add up at the moment, and that's simply because the team has a finite size and we can only do so many things.
Yep. totally understand. We are in a transitional phase, and if we look at it that way, we can set our expectations accordingly. So.
But it's exactly as you pointed out, deploy SSRS in SharePoint integrated mode. One thing that is probably to give the ball over to Gregory to talk a bit about, there is this notion of evergreen now. Right? If SharePoint and Excel Online are evergreen, that means that if SSRS in SharePoint integrated mode is there today, it will be there in this evergreen environment forever.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. Kind of has to be, right? Yeah.
Well, if you have Power View reports, keep using SSRS in SharePoint integrated mode. If you want mobile BI reports, have a native SSRS instance on the side. The future is not Power View. We say that openly the next generation of Power View is Power BI. There will be a Power BI desktop rendering, server rendering story post RTM. It will be in a native SSRS deployment. We know that pretty much for sure. And so this native SSRS will just grow in significance. We will have a SharePoint integration story. The technical details are yet to be determined, but there will be one. SharePoint is not going away. That would be a ridiculous thought from the BI landscape. It will be a better together story. You can have your native SSRS without it, or when you have SharePoint, it will be better together anyway. And so this will naturally evolve into a different environment over time, but the investments you have today are not, in vain.
Yeah, the point to that I really like is that we're keeping, in so many cases, we've been jerking the users around for a really long time. And the nice thing about the direction that this is going in is, to your point, it's the evergreen model. It's what's there is going to stay there. The future looks different, but it's not going away, what you have. And we're giving them a consistent experience now and adding on and adding on and adding on and giving them an even better set of opportunities. For the user, it continues to look like what they've known, and we get to build on the knowledge base that they have. But beyond that, it's, the hard part becomes the IT pros problem, and you guys are working on that story as well. It's not a simple configuration today as at the RTM space.
As Kai's document would indicate.
But on the positive side, for anybody as an IT pro who's worried about job security, thank you. They can be pretty happy with the fact that this on-prem world, as we look at it, from an on-prem only standpoint, but especially from a hybrid opportunity, the IT pro space is very much alive and well. You guys are putting a lot of effort into continuing to evolve, and that's really encouraging for those of us out in the world.
Hey, there is an on-prem story. I mean, that's good.
I agree. To that point, we did have a question in the chat room. Teresa asked probably 25 minutes.
I wanted to lead into that question, actually.
You got it, sir.
If you don't mind. No, it's basically a platform question, and hers is a good question. But I'd like to get both of these out of the way. The 26. So if we're deploying release SharePoint 2016, we need the 2016 OOS, and we need the 2016 SQL bits, the Power Pivot for SharePoint bits. And this is my understanding. I'd like you to clarify it. And that's from an SSRS standpoint. Teresa's question, and I think it's a good one, is will she be able to take advantage of what's there in both OOS and the new SSRS on a SharePoint 2013 farm? That's questions for both of you. So I don't know who wants. I guess Greg, you go first. Kai's been going for a few minutes.
Sure. So firstly, I think to clarify things, so we have these three major components that exist in the on-premises world, right? There's this SharePoint server box, and there's this Office Online server box, and the SSAS server box used to process model, right? So that would be the SSAS and Power Pivot for SharePoint mode, as opposed to organizational all-up cubes and stuff like that. We're not touching those. And when we talk about these three boxes and the compatibility between those, obviously the best case scenario would be to have them all aligned on one version. So we're talking about SharePoint 16, Office Online 16, and SSAS 16. Now, having said that, It is not always an easy thing to set up or a quick thing to set up. What we came up with is this idea that the person who wants to update or upgrade their environment to the 2016 model should do it bottom up. So ideally, they would upgrade their SSAS and Power Pivot for SharePoint mode to the newest version. They would upgrade their Office Online Server to the newest version, and only then they would upgrade their SharePoint server to the newest version, which basically means that you can have a topology, a transitional, let's call it a transitional state, where Office Online Server is 2016 version, whereas SharePoint Server is still on the 2013 version. So that's partly the answer to this question. Yes, you can have SharePoint 13 and Office Online 16 in this topology, and you can still enjoy various scenarios and various capabilities, such as connectivity to external data, such as working with a data model. So you don't really need to upgrade SharePoint Server in order to work with workbooks with connected to an OLAP queue, for example.
Yeah, and Office Web App Server could not do that before. I wanted to make that clear.
That's
yeah.
correct.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to jump in with that. Yeah.
Sure. So that's definitely a benefit that that we bring in this new architecture, because it couldn't be achieved previously. And
that's something you can do with 2013.
Yeah.
If you wanted to say that.
Yeah. It's any data connectivity from Excel to an external data source, or the ability to use Excel with the data model can be achieved without upgrading SharePoint. So that's a good thing. However, using all those SQL components that Kai will talk about shortly do require SharePoint upgrade, because they need to be able to talk to Excel Online on Office Online Server, and only the new versions of these components know how to do that. So it's just as simple as that, integration stuff. So Kai?
Yeah, you already said it. For BI components, specifically the Power BI, Power Pivot. Now I'm getting myself.
Freudian slip.
Yeah,
we've got lots of power. Yeah,
yes. Very powerful.
We got the power.
I once proposed a power adapter, but nobody wanted to go for it.
There's a tweet somewhere in that. There's a tweet somewhere in that. That's awesome.
Okay. So the Power Pivot add-in for SharePoint 2013 still uses the old architecture where Excel services needs to be available in the farm. And that means that all the goodies that Gregory is putting into the Excel Online 2016 version is not really available to these components there. That story will not change as far as the Power Pivot add-in is concerned. But the more the BI story evolves, it'll, of course, not just affect reporting services. Gregory is also working with us on the BI story. Excel workbooks are one of the major BI workloads that we have. And the more of the BI capabilities that find a home in Excel Online, the more SharePoint 2013 will be available to take advantage of those. And then we'll have an easier story for SharePoint 2013 implicitly. One of the things to point out is that the integration APIs, and Excel Online demonstrates that the integration APIs that we want to use, they are available in both versions of SharePoint. There's nothing stopping us on that level to support SharePoint 2013 in the future.
Okay, so initially it's all 2016 across the board from the SQL added bits, but there's nothing intrinsically stopping us. So I guess for Teresa's angle, if she wanted today to stay with 2013, but take advantage of as much of the new stuff as she could stand up OOS. She could stand up an SSAS SharePoint Power Pivot mode now server to go with that box. She won't be able to schedule the refresh on it, but she could also stand up a native mode SSRS box and connect to it such as you can with the current web parts. But
actually, scheduled data refresh would probably work.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That sounds like an experiment that I need.
Because you would have, as of SharePoint 2013, you have Excel services in the farm and Excel Online outside of the farm.
Yeah.
And the Power Pivot add-in for scheduled refresh would use the Excel services instance inside the farm to just load the data models, refresh them, and save them back.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would, because the workbooks are actually stored within SharePoint.
Yes, and when you open the workbook, you still have the WOPI redirection to Excel Online, and Excel Online renders that and can stream. Gregory, you're shaking your head. Is that not possible? Yes, it is, isn't it?
Well,
Breaking ground.
it sounds like an adventure. And I vaguely remember us talk about that, and we did point out some problems with that, but I don't remember what they are. So I'm trying to remember what the problems would be.
Workbook as a data source would not work.
Neither would Power Query.
Yeah. Yes, you would not be able to consume that work.
And the data model would need to be
No,
pre-20.
Power Query would work because our client libraries in SharePoint 2013 would load that data model on the ECS instance inside the farm.
How
But
would
Power
the
Query
scheduled
doesn't
data
work for-
refresh? Scheduled data refresh is supposed to use SOAP, and SOAP is hardwired to Excel services.
That's what I'm saying. You have the Excel services instance in the farm, right?
Okay.
You have
Yeah.
Excel Online and Excel services. I
Yeah.
render the workbooks in Excel Online, and if they have a data model, you stream it to the ES server just fine. And if I want to refresh the model, I go through the ECS instance. And John, to your point, if I have Power View in that thing,
Power View.
Power Query. Man, I'm tripping up today all the time. Yeah, Power Query refresh would not work.
Right, because it doesn't today. And,
Yes.
well, still doesn't. Yeah.
That's evergreen stuff. Gregory is going to have the Power Query support soon.
I wasn't going to ask that question.
No, that's
Can we cut that out of the unwing that?
no, that's totally fair. Come on, we communicated Power Query support to all the customers, and they are opening up the RTM box and they're saying, "Where is it?"
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, we know Power Query refresh is coming for Power Pivot for SharePoint, right? And we know that.
Yeah.
It's not there yet.
We didn't trip over that sentence at all. I totally envy you, man. I'm
It's
so.
on its way somewhere. Yeah.
It's in there. It's on the list, right?
Power Query is top of everything. I think we will have Power Query support in the analysis services engine by RTM timeframes. Fingers crossed.
I didn't know that. That's excellent.
And Gregory, well, for Power Pivot mode, right?
Yeah.
M capability in the engine, and Gregory needs to update his bits as well, so that the right processing commands are sent to the ES engine when we refresh the workbook, and that's pretty much what needs to be done.
That's great. That's fantastic stuff. So now it's probably great to interject with a problem or with a question neither one of you probably have a clear answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway. We've been talking about two of the BI pillars in SharePoint, Excel services and reporting services. And there's this other one. It's called Performance Point. And you guys have heard of it, right? What's the story with Performance Point? What's the official story, just for our audience's benefit?
Right, so I can expand on that a little bit because every time we talk about SharePoint BI, the two questions come up, and that's what about Performance Point and what about Visio services? Both of them are, they are deemed to be in the same boat with us because firstly, they're advertised as part of the Insights, SharePoint Insights features. So they're part of the same pack of features that the customers receive when they buy the enterprise SharePoint license. That's fair enough. Another reason is because both Visio services and Performance Point services have flows that are dependent on Excel services. So they are capable of utilizing, connecting to Excel services in one way or the other and utilizing data from Excel workbooks. And the answer is, in this new 2016 version of SharePoint, both remain intact. So both Visio services and Performance Point services are still there. they still work the same way that they worked previously. And in their new versions, they do know how to integrate with Excel Online on Office Online Server. So that's the only statement I really have from my standpoint as an Excel guy. We did make contact with these people, and we did inform them that Excel services is going away, so they need to integrate with Excel Online. They've taken a note of that, made it work, and reported that it's working. That's all I have to report on. So.
Yeah, and for right now, so I guess I should ask then, are they doing the same thing as the Excel web part, the Excel services web part is doing, and calling the new that SOAP shim that calls into OS?
Conceptually, yes. I mean, Excel web part is also dependent on Excel Online today. So if you attempt to use Excel web part in SharePoint, but you don't have an Office Online Server bound to this SharePoint server farm, Excel web part will give you an error saying, please go and configure Office Online Server and then come back to me and try to use it. So that is essentially the same kind of dependency.
But John, you know full well that nothing BI and SharePoint is that easy.
Of course.
No, it just works, right?
Accesses the workbook like it is an AS server, right? I mean, AS database, I mean. So it uses ADOMD.NET. ADOMD uses an SB client component. That SB client component uses the Excel Online SOAP API. And then the call goes out to Excel Online, where Excel Online streams the model into the AS server, returns the name of the data model and the name of the server it picked to the data provider, and then the data provider connects directly to the AS server, and then Performance Point can query that data model.
It's a little bit convoluted.
Sounds perfectly simple to me when you explained it. I got it.
Easy enough.
It's interesting you brought that up, because at the data summit 2 days ago, one of the big reveals is that Excel will be able to connect to Power BI data models in the cloud. So when you stand up a Power BI, any data, you can use a content pack, whatever you do, you create a data model in the cloud, which is that great big SSAS box. I'm going to be able to now connect from Excel to that. And they're really, the only thing they need to enable that is a new MSOLAP driver. So conceptually, I would assume we could throw that driver on the OOS server, and that should work. Does that make sense? Does that ring true to you guys? That was the question I had Ed ask at that summit, by the way, and they didn't answer on stage. So
the really complicated area for BI and SharePoint is and was and probably will always be authentication.
Yep.
And the question that I don't know whether it would work is, how does this MSOLAP provider do the Azure AD authentication when it's sitting in Excel Online?
It's using effective username.
So, yeah, but it's using effective username in order to send an effective username to be in a trusted subsystem.
Right. Yep.
So effective username with a cloud service.
Right. Some other server-to-server trust that we have to configure.
The only thing in the current implementation that you probably could get away with is integrated authentication, so that Excel Online would go effectively to an ADFS server that you have on-prem, get a SAML token, that is your sign-in token, to present to Azure AD, and then get the Azure AD token to present it to the cloud service. But as you know, to do this communication, you need cross-constrained delegation between Excel Online and the ADFS server. And in large organizations, it would be an interesting question to find out where the ADFS servers really are. And I think there is often a barrier. There are some often stuff that we still need to figure out. That will also come post-RTM at some time, where, for example, AS will have better authentication capabilities, not necessarily better, but additional authentication capabilities more than just Windows authentication in on-prem, and that will also spill into what we are going to cook up in the cloud. And then hopefully, of course, Gregory and I were working very closely together. It's almost like we're in one team, really. And those capabilities will also be integrated into the entire BI stack, so that it is then a seamless flow. And then it will work without having to bend over backwards. That's my hope.
That's interesting. It's funny because I'll often answer questions about why does it work this way here and that way there, and I said, well, that was the SQL team,
Yes.
and that was the Office team, and they don't go out for beers very often. But you guys are that interface.
That actually is not really the Microsoft anymore. There's this one Microsoft thing, and as much as this is just a mantra, but I think with Excel Online and the SQL BI guys, we are living this really well, both as far as the BI components that ship in Excel and in Excel Online, the integration capabilities are concerned. That's definitely the case.
Yeah, I see it. It's great what we're seeing coming down the pike. I mean, you guys. And originally, I know Kai better than I know Greg, and I reached out to Kai. Can you be on the show? And I'm not coming on without Greg.
That's all right. Yeah, we're trying to back up each other because, well, the topic is too tricky. Yeah.
Well, welcome to our customers' world, my friend.
Yeah,
That's it.
That is the reason why John and I decided that this show was needed in the year 2016. But to be transparent to our audience, when we first started talking, it was like, are we going to walk through a script of questions? No, we're going to just talking, and it's just going to flow. And you've seen it here, folks. This is BI Geeks at play. This is what we do. And most of the time, there's a glass of scotch in my hand when we're doing it, but it's only 1:30 in the afternoon here, so I can't quite go that route. But hopefully, we've answered the questions of the folks in the chat room and in the audience today. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Is there anything that you guys want to close out with? Anything that as we're running close to the end? I think we're 8 minutes from the end, and I know John has some really fun tips and tricks, which if we don't get to, we'll do it next time. I'd rather spend the time with you guys. But is there anything that we haven't covered that you think that our audience really needs to know?
I have one bit that I would like to mention regarding compatibilities and stuff. I'd like to answer the question that wasn't actually asked: is why do we need to upgrade SSAS in Power Pivot for SharePoint mode to the 2016 version? And the answer to this is actually because we need this version of SSAS in order to consume workbooks that have been authored in the 2016 version of Excel Desktop Client. So if in your organization you upgraded the Excel Desktop clients first and decided to upgrade the on-premises environment sometimes next year, chances are that those newly authored Excel workbooks could actually break down when you use them in your legacy on-premise environment. And this could happen specifically in case A, they utilize data model, and B, they utilize the new fancy DAX functions that have been introduced in SSAS 2016. Okay? And that is basically the main reason why we do not recommend using the old SSAS server, the old SSAS server meaning less than 2016, in the on-premises environment. So in case your organization is not upgrading Excel desktop clients and wants to upgrade the on-premises environment first, you can actually get away with using SSAS 2014 for the time being.
I got to follow on to that.
Hey, hang on, John. Let me ask you a question first before you do, because yours is going to be better than mine, and he's going to go on forever on yours. Mine is probably going to answer very quickly. So the question.
Kai's going to fight me on this, I think so.
I'm already ready. Yes.
Yeah. So here's a question that I know that we'll get from the audience at some point. Talking about the upgrade process. One of the beautiful things about SQL is being able to have multiple instances installed on the same box. Is it something that you would say we could do? Because I know in previous versions, installing in SharePoint mode, we had a specific named instance.
Ooh.
Is it possible to install the new version of 2016 SSAS in Power Pivot mode? Is that possible to install in the same box as the 14 version? And the secondary question to that is the Office Online Server bits, are they able to get installed on the same box as the Office Web App Server bits? Or do do people have to install them on separate servers? I have a feeling I know the answer. I just wanted to make sure that we got that out for people to actually know.
Yeah. Kai, would you like to take that?
Okay, I'll take it. SQL is easy. Yes, you can have side-by-side installations.
Okay. And the named instance is not an issue anymore as far as
I should put that link for my white paper in here.
Yeah, you know what? I'll get it in there, and it's going to go up with the show notes. Definitely, I refer to that thing in every blog post I do for the last 2 months, I think. So,
different instance names now. Theoretically, you could also avoid the instance name altogether and have the default instance. Unfortunately, we have a bug in one of our components that we're not going to fix for RTM. It's just not important enough to enable this default instance in Power Pivot mode. So the default instance name is not going to work just yet. But you can have any name. It's no longer pinned to Power Pivot. You could, in my white paper, for example, I name it SharePoint.
Yep. That's what I did too. And just for Jason's question, the OOS question, can you have 2 installed in the same box? I don't think so.
No. The answer is no. Office Online Server advertises that they have to be installed on a machine of their own. So they cannot be installed on the same machine with SharePoint Server or with SSAS Server or with SSRS Server or anything like that. So that's the case today, and this situation, as far as I know, is not going to change in the near future. So you do need a separate Windows OS box in order to install the Office Online Server on it. Yeah.
Understood. But if it's the question was specific. That being the case, and thank you for stating that very clearly. Can you install it on a box that is running the Office Web Apps 2013 was the question. I expect that you can't because of DLL conflicts, but is that something that could be done is if I already have provisioned servers for Office Online that I want to go ahead, or sorry, for Office Web Apps, the 2013 version, I want to go ahead and use the same servers for Office Online Server being the 2016 version, can I install them side by side on the same box?
Right. I don't think I followed this question, but can you repeat that?
Absolutely. So the question being, in 2013, we had the same situation where Office Web Apps had to be installed on their own server. Yeah. So if I want to take that same server that is currently running Office Web Apps for 2013, for my 2013 implementation, but I want to do exactly what you're saying. So I've upgraded my SSAS world.
Oh, I see.
And I want to, now I've moved up and I'm ready to upgrade to Office Online Server. Can I install it on the same box? Is it containerized in such a way that they can live side by side? Or do I need a separate installation, separate Windows OS for that purpose?
Okay, so as far as I know, and I don't claim to know it all, but as far as I know, this translates into side-by-side installation or in-place installation. So as far as I know, Office Online Server can only be installed side-by-side, meaning that you do need a separate box, or you do need to uninstall the previous version and then install a different version. And that is, so there is no change there as far as I know. However, on SharePoint Server, there is a change. So if you install the new SharePoint 2016 version, it will then be able to be upgraded in place, okay, which is a big change as far as I know from the previous situation. So, and that's part of the evergreen world. So you don't need anymore to have side-by-side installations whenever you plan to upgrade your SharePoint. You can do it using a single box and upgrading it to the new version, to the new.
That'll be from 16 to 16, but that's not. I don't think that's true from 13 till 16.
That is correct. Yes. Yes.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
So and just to add on to all that, because it introduces another question. So if I was to go ahead and do that, and let's go back to let's update our SSAS SharePoint mode. Sorry, Power Pivot mode. old terminology, server, will my Office Web App Server 2013 work with that server? It should, shouldn't it? It's just really it's providing the model processing. And if that is true, would I be able to use my Office 2016 clients with my SharePoint 2013, Office Web Apps 2013, but SSAS 2016? Would that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
That makes sense, right? Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Just not necessarily the best way to go, but yeah, I just wanted to understand. Okay, cool. I think
we are at the hour now.
I think we're at the hour
mark. And I know that I love the fact that Kai asked before we got started. So we have an hour and a half, right? I now understand why you wanted an hour and a half, guys. Maybe we'll get a chance later in the year after some more new stuff has dropped to have you guys back. It's been a pleasure having you on today. Folks from the chat room, feel free to continue to punch stuff in. But I think we've answered all the questions that have come up. Unless you gentlemen have anything else, John, I'll take it.
I gotta sneak one summary item in. Where we stand today, March 24th. SharePoint 2016 has RTM'd. Office Online Server has not. Am I right? Is that correct? It's not quite yet. Any day now. And SQL Server 2016 is in the next couple of months time frame.
We're in product launch, right? So.
Yeah. The launch event happened, so it's imminent. So, okay.
Yeah, I think they upgraded to RC1 this week, right?
Yes.
Last week. Yes. Or was it this week? I don't know.
Pretty sure it was this week.
It's coming out so fast now, it's hard to keep track.
It is. And test. All right.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. John, it was great spending some more time with you.
Absolutely. Always is a pleasure. And I want to echo the thanks, guys. This is really appreciated, and it's perfect from a timing standpoint, too. So really, really, really glad you could be here with us.
All right, cool.
So to our audience, thank you all for joining us. Be sure to come back and visit us at www.itunity.com/bifocal for our next bifocal show, which, golly, it's probably going to be the last week of next month, isn't it, John?
Bet you it is.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Take care, everybody. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.